But if you're going to be playing a bunch of different roles, right? If you're playing all three roles and a bunch of different characters, you have to keep in mind that that can slow the improvement process. Now, I do understand as well that you're new to the game, so definitely if you're still trying to figure out like what you like, that's a factor in there. And go ahead and keep going until you do. But really, it'll depend on what your priorities are. If your goal is to just have fun and you have fun playing a bunch of different characters, go ahead and do whatever you want and play a bunch of different characters. Though I would recommend, if your goal is to improve or climb an SR or just to win games, you're going to see a faster improvement out of limiting your hero pool down more. As currently you do seem a little bit spread thin across all the different
Hmm.
roles and different characters, so that can just lead to faster improvement. But like I said, especially if you're not sure what you want to do yet, or if you just have fun playing everything, go ahead and do it. Right? It's kind of up to you in there.
Okay. No, yeah. What I've been kind of thinking is because I'm the best at healers. I mean, as you can tell by my rating, but it's kind of like what I was thinking is doing healer as kind of like when I play comp, trying to climb
Mhm.
in as a healer, and then just playing like damage and tank just for fun, really.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's definitely a way to go about it. All right. So
Mhm.
you're Topaz in game here, right?
Yep,
Yep.
Topaz.
All right. So I am spectating you. And then, yeah, final
Okay.
question for you. So, do you have any questions for me before we begin?
I don't really think so. I guess this is more damage, but I was
Mhm.
hoping to get like your idea about like different agents to learn. Just because like I don't really have mains. Like I mostly play Hog and Reaper, but I'm not super specific to them. So if there are other agents that would be better,
Yeah.
but
So, I mean, better for like a new player, or better in what sense? Just good at the moment. Is that
are
kind of
like
what
ones
you're
that
asking?
you wish you would have mained when you started.
Honestly, like I would just wouldn't go for any of the side characters. So like I'd stay away from some of the characters that like have never really been super great, like maybe Torb or Symmetra. Those two characters aren't super great. Hit scan characters have always been pretty solid. So characters that have guns that go, they shoot like McCree
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Soldier and whatnot. So it's realistically, it's gonna be, you can climb on whatever character, so it's really just mess around with them and pick which one you want to play, right? And kind of figure out what you have the most fun doing. All right. So now it'll just be a minute or so. I'm looking for something to talk about then here.
Okay.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have a big positioning talk after we're done here, but some things I will go over after we're done, just because I don't have enough time to go over at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And then I did climb using Moira. That's kind of how I got to gold.
Yep.
Do you think you think that's okay? Because I kind of went Moira just because if DPS were slacking, I could focus more on that, do more damage, or if like if we're fine on that, I can just do that, or
Yeah,
should I just focus
I think
mainly on healing? What do you think?
honestly, you can go. I mean, like on Mora, you should be of healing, of course, as well, right? Mora is more of like a
Right.
50-50 split on the character between the two.
Mhm.
But yeah, it really don't, unfortunate. So basically, you can play whatever you want to play. The Ana, because everything you can work with. Ana is historically just been a better character at higher ranks than Moira, but Moira definitely can
Mhm.
do work at lower ranks as well. So as of the moment, there's no issue with Moira, though if you were to be playing at like a Grandmaster top 500 level, then that Ana might be a better pick to go for.
Right.
So here, yeah, we'll talk about a lot of stuff after this game. Let's think, yeah.
Smells like victory.
Where's Bob?
All right. So first off, I would probably, when it comes to nanos, probably be going for our Genji as he is a blade. Now you're new to the game, so you're not familiar with a lot of the combos, but Genji and
Hmm.
Ana ulting together is what you call Nano Blade, and that is very, very
Okay.
powerful. One of the best, like basically, if you have a Genji who has blade, there's almost no other
Then you just
person who
go
you
for the
should be
nano
nanoing.
there.
Yes, yes, exactly. So you kind of have a priority in who you should
Gotcha.
be
All
going
right.
for, and Genji would probably be very high up on that
Okay.
list when he has his ult. Same as some other ones. So we might go over like kind of priorities of like who should
Gotcha.
we be nanoing. Um,
Okay.
yeah, well, we also might chalk on
Yeah.
some more awareness things as well.
Gotcha. Man, I was hoping to get that sleep off, but now I was going to try to nano because you can nano Bob, right?
Yep.
I've heard that people do that sometimes. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'll, like
Could
try
be
to focus like
situational.
Genji and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
In this situation, you want to focus him when he has his ultimate, especially. But we'll go maybe over an priority list when we get the chance.
Gotcha.
All right.
So am I like just pushing too far up? Is that kind of why I keep getting picked
Yeah,
off?
so we'll discuss all that when we go over positioning in general. But we have a
Okay.
lot of positional stuff planned. We'll just keep playing, and then we'll go over that when we get the chance. I don't want to distract you from your gameplay with a big, multi-minute long conversation.
Right, right.
I have your back.
Alright, make sure paying attention to our own health bar, as a lot of times when we're low, we
Hmm.
haven't seemed to be noticing, so make sure paying attention to when we are low and we can self-heal with our nade, rather than trying to
Okay.
throw it for other people when we can just normal heal other people, right? It might be
Okay.
better to keep ourselves alive.
You're powered up. Get
Alright, so let's talk on some stuff. I'm going to exit out there, going to go to the training range, and then I'm going to
Okay.
stream if you'd like to take a look. Don't hop into a game quite yet. You should be getting queues
Gotcha.
pretty fast. So here we're going to go over a bunch of stuff. First off, let's talk on
never stop
positioning,
fighting
as we
for what you
died quite a
believe
bit
in.
just from poor positioning. So let's talk about how does positioning work in Overwatch, and in most games out there. So if we are standing right here, right, and the whole enemy team is standing all the way over there, right, that means that it takes, and they start shooting at us. It takes us 1, 2, 3 seconds to get behind cover. Now, from cover, right, now you cannot shoot through solid objects, so we're safe, we're
Right.
good. But in that time it took us to get here, we died because we were out in the open. Right, now from cover, right, we can shoot people and do mostly the same stuff, but now it takes us half a second to duck behind cover when needed, right, because we're
Right.
playing near it. So therefore, right, that was 6 times faster than what we had previously, which means that now we'll actually stay alive versus before where we would die. So again, therefore, good at positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? And there's a lot of different types of cover, right? We have stuff like that. We have slopes that we can use. We have random pillars that are sitting around in between
Hmm.
shots when we're
That's
low
what only
health, when
hurt
we're
failure.
reloading, when we're being
Experience
shot
always
at,
wins in
right?
the
We
end.
have corners that we can use that do the same thing. We have random objects that are sitting around like that we can use the payload like that, right? Pillar, corner, doorway, corner, it's all over the place, so just look around for it, right? On top of that, high ground usage. Let's talk about high ground usage yet, because we
Not
never
done.
actually used high ground. So high grounds are fantastic. Look to take them as often as they appear. So high grounds, right? All act as natural cover, right? They can see us, now they can't. He can see us, now they can't, right? So all of high ground act as that cover that we just talked about is great. All of high ground is that for the most part, right? With some exceptions, right? Now on top of that, on a high ground, most characters in the game can't reach you without using stairs. So you have an additional layer of survivability because most characters can't get to you. And then the ones that can need to use abilities, which means you can run away and now they
Go
don't
to
have
sleep.
abilities, right? So now thirdly, on a high ground, you have a ton of visibility. We can see over here, over there, over here, and over there, right? But if we were to drop from the low ground, well, now we can't see over there, we can't see over there, we can't see any of the high grounds, right? So we lose out on a lot of
Hmm.
visibility. So high ground is going to do a whole heck of a lot for you, and we never actually ended up taking high ground. And we also spent a lot of time out in the open and not really
Right.
using cover, and then therefore we died a whole lot, right? And that meant that we weren't able to do things, and obviously dying isn't fun. So
Hmm.
having better positioning is definitely going to allow you to stay alive and do more things, hopefully here. So
Right.
maybe one other thing
You're
to keep in
covered.
mind as well is we did end up getting close to the enemy team a lot. So let's talk about range and where we should be standing. So typically you want to have a close range to your team and a medium range away from the enemy team. So that would be maybe from the enemy team you should be like probably no closer than like 15 meters if possible. So that'd be like from here to there, right?
Right.
Against enemies. And then with teammates, you should preferably be maybe within like 5 meters maybe, but I mean you can go up to like 15 meters away from them. You just don't want to be too far, as really the main thing why you don't want to be too far in Ana, because you do have a scope, right? So you can scope
Hmm.
in, but you don't want to be
Right.
too far because of your abilities, right? Because they're both projectiles, and inherently projectiles are more difficult
It's
to
quiet.
land at ranges because they have slow moving speeds. They're easy to dodge, easy to, they could just accidentally move out of the way. They can block it. So ultimately you want to be a little bit closer to the fight because of your projectiles. So whereas a
Okay.
lot of the time
I
we ended up
see.
kind of
We're going
getting a
for
little
this.
bit too close for comfort to the enemy team and a little bit out in the open. Not, and then I think we did a good job of staying close to our team-ish, right, for the most part. Moving on to some other topics. Let's see. Ultimate usage. Let's talk on who are good nano targets real quick. I guess, let's see. Do I have my chart that I used to have? I haven't pulled this up in a while. Give me one moment to see if I still have this chart available or if I just lost it, because it might be doo-doo-doo. All right. Not sure if I do actually have this, so I might end up having to just walk through this real quick. So I guess let's just walk through real quick of just what are good characters to nano, what characters are not good to nano, right? And then you can go back to the video if you need to rewatch this. But
Hmm.
ultimately, you want to go for characters that are not skill shot based, right? Characters that don't require you to hit on a cool shot like Widowmaker, right, or Soldier, or
Right.
McCree, or Soldier, or Hans or whatever, because those characters can be very inconsistent. Whereas you want consistent damage. Also, tanks usually are going to be pretty solid, as they do have as the three benefits that you get out of a nano are the increased damage, increased reduction of damage, right? And then
Right.
you have healing, right? So tanks are gonna get a lot of value out of all three because they have very consistent damage. They have a lot of health in which to heal up, and they also have a lot of health to get the reduction of damage. So tanks a lot of times are gonna be really good. So Diva's an okay nano target, Orissa's a meh nano target, Ryan's a really good nano target, Roadhog only with his ultimate, right? Sigma is an okay nano target, Winston is a good nano target, Ball's okay nano target, Zarya is a pretty good, but only if she has her energy and when she's high energy.
Right.
Ash, never. Bob, maybe sometimes, right? So he's an okay nano target, but only if they don't have a sleep or a hack for him to just cancel
Hmm.
him. Bastion, in ult or without a volt, he's really good, right? So great, but all
Gotcha. Right.
around.
Right.
Doomfist, in ult or without ult is pretty decent. Not as good as Bastion, so he's good, right? Echo,
Hmm.
in ult is pretty good, is really good, right? But only, and then out of ult, like okay. Genji, in ult, one of the best in the game, right? Out of ult, not great. Hanzo, no. Junkrat, no. McCree, in his ultimate, pretty solid, not fantastic. Mei,
Hmm.
no. Pharah, in ult, yes. Out of ult, okay. Reaper, in ult, yes. Out of ult, okay. Soldier, no out of ult, yes. Right. Again,
Hmm.
really good combo in his ultimate. So probably Nano Visor is a just below power level to Nano Blade, so that's also a really good combo, especially when they're gonna buff it soon. um,
Right. Right.
Sombra, probably never. Symmetra, maybe if she's like super high charge. Torbjorn, never. Tracer, pretty much never, but she's like okay maybe. Widowmaker,
Hmm.
never. And then supports, you're pretty much never gonna
Right.
nano. There's maybe certain tiny little situations where you would, but that's getting a little bit advanced in which you would
Right.
use them. So that's kind of the rough nano list. Now, when you get into games, the best way to go about that is to think to yourself, okay, what are the top 3 people I should be nanoing, right? This helps with for example, like we would pick number 1, number 2, number 3, and we go, okay, well, if number 1 is Genji, right, and he doesn't have Blade, well, then we go to number 2. Or if number 2 is dead, then we go to number 3, right? So we would go
Hmm.
to the next one if they don't have their ult, or if they're dead, or if we need to get an ultimate off, right? And then that is so that we have a plan for it. Make sure we're not holding on to our ultimate, as we did hold on to it for a little bit, and that just means we get less value out of it. And on top of that, look to use our ultimate earlier in fights, as we don't want to be using them as typically just generally ultimates that are used earlier get more value than ults that are used later.
Right.
Let's see, what else is there? Let's talk about one. Let's talk about, I guess, trying to think. So there was the one fight where we tried to recontest first point, right? And we went back in, and the problem was that we weren't paying attention to who was on point. And we basically, what happened was we got 3 kills, but then we had nobody who could touch point, and then we nanoed somebody. So in that situation, nano probably wasn't needed. First off, because you already had 3 kills on your side, but then also because it wasn't even worth it because you lost the point anyways, right? Like if you can't go and touch, like for example, let's say like that's point all the way over there, and you see on your screen no one on your team's gonna be able to touch it, then us nanoing somebody is just a wasted ultimate, right? Because we can't win the fight with it. Right, so in that situation, make sure we're just paying attention to our surroundings and then making a decision accordingly. Nade, don't try to hit people directly with it. I'm noticing that we're trying to like chuck it straight at people, like we're trying to hit this person directly. Instead, you're trying to hit the feet in between people. So the feet in between people. The reason why you do this is because first off, people can body block it from hitting the people behind them if you throw it straight at people. And then also, if you were to miss, then it's just going to go sailing straight past the person, right? Whereas if you're aiming at the floor, even if you were to miss it, it's still going to hit them, right? Because of the big, massive AoE. And in fact, it can even be easier to hit them if you're aiming for the floor. So aim at the floor in between as many people as possible. I did like, though, that we were going for anti-nades. That was pretty good. And then we did get some solid sleeps off as well. So ability usage was not too terrible. Also, mechanics was looking pretty solid of just general aiming. So you can probably go ahead and look to hop into another game now. And then we'll just go on from there. Definitely a lot. It's just, you know, when there's just I have to figure out which ones to prioritize and go for first.
Right. All right. Then is it good if I queue for like DPS or something?
Yep, go ahead, queue for whatever you want. You know, some of these things will be like, you know, not everything, but some things will be crossover, like, you know, positioning and awareness, right? Those things are gonna be pretty much the same across the different roles, right? You're still gonna use cover and high grounds. You know, ability usage and ultimate usage will change on characters, but like not the same basic concepts such as make sure you're using them, make sure you're using them in the beginning of fights. You know, the timing of them especially, right? Will stay the same.
Okay. And then just to like climb, you think Reaper works all right, or should I like?
Reaper works fine, right? So like in terms of characters, I'd probably say characters that I would just stray away from just because of the infrequency in which they've been like good or meta. So I'd stray away from like Torbjorn, Symmetra, Sombra, probably Doomfist, Bastion in DPS. Those are the characters that like have pretty much rarely been meta characters, though they do work. But of course, you can climb. Meta really ultimately only matters at insanely high levels of play or in team play. It really realistically doesn't matter at a ranked level because you can just get good at what you're playing and then climb off of that. So you could, on any of those characters that I just listed, still climb if you just learn how to play them. It just might be you just might be working a little bit uphill. Just you'd be like at a slight handicap. You would be able to overcome that just by the pure play time. Moira is really good at lower ranks, but you know because of how easy she is to play. But she ultimately is gonna be outshone by a character like Ana at high levels of play, where Ana and Baptiste just output more utility than Moira does. Besides that, most supports have been in and out of metas. Tanks, I would probably say, let's see. Within tanks, most tanks have been in and out of metas. So honestly, you would be fine to learn pretty much any tank. Maybe Orisa hasn't been good for a little while, but she was good at some point. So as of the current moment, maybe Orisa would be one I'd stray away from. But I mean, you know, again, you play whatever and learn whatever and still be doing good with them. It's just ultimately right now, what you're looking for is to find what characters do you like to play and then trying to stick with those characters because you're going to have the most motivation to climb with them, most motivation to improve, and you're also going to have the most fun doing that.
Okay. And then should I just like hop into a deathmatch? Would that help at all?
I cannot spectate you if you were to.
Oh, right, right.
Yeah, so unfortunately it doesn't let me do that. So hopefully, are you queued just for DPS right now?
Uh, yeah, but I
Yeah.
have the priority pass going. I don't
Yeah.
know how much that helps.
Yeah, I mean it does sometimes. It really depends. So yeah, we
Yeah,
could. So
it said less than 1 minute, but we're chilling
mm,
at 3 right now. So
okay, so trying to think then. We could potentially. I'm trying to think of what other things we could review. So I guess did you just have any other questions that popped up at all, or
um, I don't really think so.
okay, then I guess we might as well just go over some of the basic
Oh, all
game concept. Oh yeah, there you go. You
right,
got
just
it.
got it.
Got a game. Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Now entering
All
the
right, and then I think I was gonna go Echo because
Mm-hmm.
Reaper is like I'm probably better with Reaper, but I feel like Echo is more skill based, so I feel like it would benefit me more to.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like you can probably play. Like I said, like they're both pretty similar in power level. So I mean, like feel free to play Echo if you want to learn how to play Echo. But I mean, playing Reaper, you'd have probably like a similar level of actual benefit you'd get out of it. So
Okay. All
it's
right.
up to you.
Next, I'll probably hop on Reaper
Hmm. Yep.
because Reaper I probably have one of the higher win rates with, just because like
Yeah.
his ult's so easy to use. He
Mm.
heals himself, so you don't have to rely a ton on support.
Mm.
But
Reposition. You
yeah.
got a problem, Junker.
You needed a doctor?
Yes.
Damage increase.
So as far as like the choke goes, I've seen like some people just like chill back here, try to get some damage out before they move back. Do you think it's better to do that or just stay and hold the choke with the
Um,
rest of your team?
I'd probably say that it's on Reaper. You might want to. There's like some spots that you can go to that might like kind of give you more of a surprise advantage, and then this might be hard to get back away from. So honestly, like
Hmm.
you can do here, but then that something like that
Yeah.
happens. So
Right.
maybe like if you can chill backwards further, you can drop down on top of them from high grounds or options you have. There's like 3 different high grounds that you can go to that you can perch up on that
Clean
would
the
Mhm.
head.
just give you good advantages from.
From the shadows.
Okay, good job using your shield. That's good. What sensitivity and DPI would you say you're at?
That's a good question. I actually have no clue.
All right,
Looks like 15 sensitivity,
great.
30 horizontal, 15 vertical.
All right, that's controller sensitivity, so that shouldn't have any impact
Oh,
unless you're using a
right.
controller.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you know what DPI you have?
I don't.
You don't? Okay, so that might be something to go over after this. So that seems like a pretty high one. We'll discuss that after we're done here.
Okay.
The battle continues. Healing in her. Get them off me.
Yeah. That probably could have been a good situation to go for an ultimate. Remembering again, like we don't want to hold on to our ult, and when Reinhardt had landed a shatter, maybe we could have like wraithed in and then blossomed, right, and then we could have comboed with his ultimate. So again, just wanting to make sure we're not holding on to ults because they are very powerful, and maybe
Okay.
could have won that fight there if we had used it.
Right.
From the shadows.
Double kill. You're powered up. Get in there.
Very very nice.
Oh, you look tired.
Right, so here for the next fight, right, maybe we can set up like up top on this high ground and wait for them. Like the same thing we just did with our Blossom, but we can just kind of drop in on top of them from above.
In
Right, I
position.
wouldn't peek
Gotcha.
too much because you're not gonna get too much value out of shooting them from far away, and
Right.
you just want to wait till for them to get like underneath you.
Mm-hmm.
Here comes T Racer. Time's up. Right on target.
So on that end, you might want to be careful about dropping too far back because you have to think about like how do I get out, right? And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times the way you're
Yeah.
gonna get out is with your Wraith, but if you're going way too far back, well then your Wraith's not gonna get you back to your team, right?
Right.
So yeah, if you're coming from too far back, then your Wraith's not gonna get you back to your team, and then you're just kind of stuck behind
And then
them.
I'll just
So
get picked.
exactly.
Okay.
So maybe dropping instead of on their back side, you can drop on the front side where it's closer to your team. Besides that, let's get into your sensitivity. So just basically just to start off, like unless you have a really low DPI, I would imagine at the moment that it's sounding like you have a pretty high sensitivity. So for comparison, just my sensitivity in game is 4.5. So your just in-game sensitivity would be 3 times what I have. So it does seem a little shaky as well in your aiming. So I would probably recommend trying to go for a lower sensitivity, as most of the gaming community agrees that lower sensitivities are going to be more accurate. Though there are the exceptions to that rule, such as like Pine from the Overwatch League, who does have a high sensitivity, but there's they're few and far between the people who do decide to go with
Yeah.
that. So recommendations would be to just mess around with it, check out lower sensitivities. Also, if you do not have one, you're going to need a large mouse pad to be able to do that. If you do not have a
Mm-hmm.
large mouse pad, it would be recommended before you try to test it out, because you are going to need to move your mouse around more if you have a lower sensitivity, so you're not going to be
Right.
able to lower it until you do get one.
Okay.
But that would just be a recommendation. Besides that, you can probably look to go ahead and hop back in your game. I think on Reaper there we did pretty solid, though. Honestly, that was a pretty fast game. There was just
Mm-hmm.
couple things where we just dropped too far behind them, missed some shots, didn't go for our ultimate in the first fight,
Right.
died in the first time around. So one thing. I guess let's just go over the basic concept of Reaper as a character. Oh, I did not mean to do the tutorial. That's not what I meant to click. I'm still streaming. Let's just go over the basics of Reaper. Let me know when you get into a game, though.
Gotcha. I just
Oh, yeah.
logged in.
Or
Never
you
And
just
this
got in
was
the game?
fighting for what
yeah, I
you
just got in one.
believe
All right, that works.
All right. So I usually play Rhine or Hog for tank. Which do you think you could provide like more insight into?
Either or. I can coach pretty much any character.
Okay.
So I mean,
Okay.
doesn't matter which character you're picking here.
Based off team, it doesn't look like we would have a ton of use for a shield just because Sombra's everywhere and Widow's backline. So I'll probably go Hog.
All right.
You know, Anna, there are procedures we could look into to repair your eye.
But yeah, honestly, like I'm at the point where it's kind of like I'm almost wondering. I don't know if it's like that bronze mentality of I deserve to be in silver or gold, but it's kind of like
Yeah.
because I get like half of my games I end up with like levers or something, and it's just hard to win those.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
feel like part of it's just luck.
Yeah, I mean, definitely part of it, though. If you play long enough, you're gonna realize that those same amount of levers that are in your team are gonna be happening on the enemy team to an even greater extent because you have one less person in your game who's leaving, and that's you.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
levers happen on the enemy team more frequently than to you, as long as you're playing at a frequent enough rate. So, and then besides that, you can even, if you get good enough, you can even carry through levers. So, we're working to get to that point in which you can carry.
Right.
Enemy is engaging.
Make sure you're watching out for the shield there, right? You just kind of let the shield get in front of our hook. Just being aware.
No, yeah,
of
I
this.
honestly didn't know shield. Yeah.
You're powered up. Get in there.
Probably shouldn't have hooked there just because of didn't have any ammo, but
Yeah, definitely you want to be hooking when you actually have ammo to follow up on it. Alright, we're gonna talk after this game about when to use left clicks versus right clicks, and we'll talk about a hook attack that you can go for. And then besides that, there's just things such as making sure we're using cover there. We got hooked ones where we could have been using cover, and
all
just
right.
ultimately taking a lot of damage just because we're a little bit out in the open. So we just want to make sure we're looking to use it, especially when we don't have a shield, right?
Right. So even though I'm a tank and I'm supposed to kind of like soak up damage, I shouldn't just be trying
Tanks,
to.
your objective is not to soak up damage. That is not the role of tank. The role of tank is to create space, right? This means
Okay.
taking as little damage as possible while creating space, right? So your goal isn't just to be the tank, the damage soaker, because then you're gonna die and feed them a lot of ult charge, right? Your
So
object,
I'm gonna be out in the open right now.
yeah.
So sorry. What were you saying?
Yeah, so then your objective is to take as little damage as possible. That way you don't have to rely on supports, and you can actually be self-sufficient, right, while still creating space by being a distraction. So Sombra's getting the hack off on us a lot. We can cancel this by walking around corners, so using cover can cancel that, as well as shooting her or hooking her, so I'd try to focus her. Okay, pretty solid usage of ultimate, good timing with it, and I'm pretty sure we booped some people into the whatever ball mines there. Yeah, we just keep getting hacked over and over again, so we want to just be careful about it.
Okay.
Enemies on my radar. Apagando las luces. Be right back. You're powered up. Get in there. Heroes never die. Helden sterben nicht.
I am lagging a little bit.
Yeah, I'm noticing. Oh, that was very laggy.
Yeah.
I think it might be your whole
I think
lobby. I don't know.
think so.
Yeah, I mean, I was noticing some of the other characters lagging too.
Man, I always miss that Sigma hook.
Yep, just
'Cause
keep in
can you
mind.
hook that?
Yes, you definitely can. So there, wait until after you're lifted up. As we tried to go for it, like you have a second or two while you're in the air. Versus we did try to do it like while we were in the middle of being lifted up, which meant that it just kind of like jarred us to the side. So trying to go for hooks and stuff while you're being booped around is going to be a very very good way to go about it. Okay.
See you later. EMP activated. I'm out of here. Heroes never die.
Okay, with your Hog ult, preferably try to use it closer to people. Well, we're going to talk about range on Hog, but your ultimate specifically, right, it has both spread and fall off. So fall off meaning it does less damage the further away you are. And spread, yeah, and then spread meaning that you're also going to be, basically the bullets are all very, very spread out, which means, again, you're doing less damage the further away you are. So
Yeah, and like the 5 clusters, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, in general, you're going to be doing a lot more damage with it if you're closer to people. Now, we did get Sigma off, but we didn't do a whole lot besides just getting Sigma off the edge. So, you know,
Yeah.
maybe being closer to people might allow us to use our ultimate better.
Okay.
Right? And then also, when you're ulting, your objective as well should be to try to pin people into walls and corners, and then that stops them from being booped away from you, and you can kill them
Yeah.
faster. No. There, it might have been more efficient to shoot the hog and finish him off if he was 1 HP, than to try to heal when we weren't in danger.
Okay. Oh.
You should be at peak performance level.
All right, so I'm gonna heal before she hacks me.
Where does
Okay.
it hurt?
60 seconds.
Man, Sombra's pain to play against.
Hmm.
All right, there we go.
Damage boost engaged.
And they're just not pushing up that front, pushing up that much.
I mean, that's, you know, fine for you guys.
Yeah.
Means they're not doing anything.
Everyone get off the fence.
They were stepped out in the open a little far, right? And then that got us pretty low.
All right, is it worth clearing minefield with my ult, or is it just?
You can't. I would probably use it as maybe a byproduct if there's nothing else to do with it, but
Okay.
I wouldn't make it the main focal point of your ultimate.
Man.
No, make sure we have ammo.
hmm I have like a general question. Do different characters' melees do different amounts of damage, or is it all the
Nope,
same?
all the same.
All the same? All right.
Yep. Well, I mean, unless you're counting Reinhardt and Brig, who both have,
Right.
their, you know, have their actual weapons being melee. So,
Mhm. So
which I
ammo
would-
gun.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and it is 30 damage. Oh, very nice.
Gotta hit him with that hello. Yeah.
Very nice.
If I can.
Alright, so let's talk about some stuff. Alright, so I'm streaming still if you'd like to take a look. So here we're going to talk a lot about hog ranging and what we're doing with hog at different ranges and whatnot. So let's talk about his gun at different ranges. Alright, so hog's gun at different ranges. Basically, you have a left click and a right click, right? So your or your right click, let's talk about your right click first. So if you notice, it's going to have a point in which it is a tiny little ball and then it explodes into a bunch of pieces, right?
Right.
So at that range, that range in which it does it is going to be 10 meters, and at that range you one-shot a squishy target, so any non-tank, right? Or 200 HP target, right? You can one-shot them. Now if we basically step anywhere in front of that, so 9 meters, now we're going to be doing, oh, sorry, maybe it's 8 meters. I must have been sitting on the line still. So
Yeah,
if we step and sit within this. What is... okay, well, I messed that up. It's 8 meters, apparently. All right, I messed that up. So now if we step within that, now it's going to do half damage no matter the distance in which we are from them. So if we're, you know, right up here, it's going to be doing half, you know, half HP, even to a headshot. Even body shot's going to be even less than a quarter. So basically, now if we come back to the same range, like 8 meters that it was, you know, that it started at, and we left click, right? Now, one left click's just going to do more damage flat up than that half damage, and therefore, and we hit most of those body to the body, so therefore, anywhere within this distance is going to be left click, and then anywhere with past that distance is going to be right click, right? Because we're going to do more damage at this distance with a right click, and more distance within this with a left click, right? So that's the range in which you're, you know, in which you're using each of them, and we're noticing a couple times where we would do right clicks way too close, and a couple times where we do left clicks way too far, right? So that's the basic range, right? Now, We also want to talk about just his spread and fall off, right? So you're doing less damage the further away you go because we have a big old spread on all of those bullets, and we also have fall off. So if we're standing right here, we do 1 shot. If we come back to 15 meters, now we do a good chunk of his health, right? 2 shots. Come back to 20 meters, right? This is the end of our hook range, and we're doing decent 3 shots, right? That's still decent, and but once and that's our hook range. Here we can hook. Once we step to 21 meters, now we cannot hook. Oh, again, I think I'm fat, so I'm like standing on the very edge of it. So I guess let me inch back 1 more inch
Yeah,
here, and
like
then
in
go for the.
theory, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the hook range, right? So now once I step back past 20 meters, right, that's the hook range. So now and then you step back 25 meters. Now we're taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots, right? And then by that point we are very inefficient, right? Now once we get past that 20-meter mark, we are doing very, very little because they're going to be able to get healed up, and they're going to be able to get shield and cover, and that's so many shots to kill, and therefore it's ultimately not even going to be worth it, right, at that point. So in general, try to stick within this 20-meter range, and a lot of the times we ended up actually putting ourselves further, at a further distance than we could properly play at. So try to purposefully, intentionally put yourselves within this 20 meters, so you're actually able to do things. And then if you're not going for hooks, even closer, because this is only the hook range, right, in which you're doing things. So just try to put yourself a little bit closer. Now on top of that, let's talk about hook tech. So hook tech, this is what you basically call a tracer shot. So a tracer shot is when the basic hook tech that most people will go for is hook, left click, melee if they're not low, right? Now, hook tech to add into this, right, is the tracer shot, in which you are going to shoot before you hook. So this is at right click range, you're going to right click, and within left click range, you're going to left click. So at a right click range, it would look like this, where we'd go right click, hook, left click, melee, right? And that would be your combo, right? The reason in which you would do this is because it adds in a nice chunk of damage as number 1, right? This makes it so that you can one-shot combo tanks, right? So we can, I guess we can even just go over to tank here and we can show that. So we can one-shot combo tanks, whereas otherwise we might not be able to do so. And on top of that, we want to. So I guess let's see on a hog. Let's see. So on a hog with 600 HP, if we were to land a left click, hook, left click, melee, right? You can basically do a one-shot combo to a hog. Whereas if we were just to hook, left click, then we're not doing that, right? We're doing, if we're just doing that, they still have a bunch of health left over, right? So.
Yeah.
That's going to get you a bunch of damage. This also makes up for if you miss any pellets, or if you don't hit headshots, or if they just get healed up or something, or that you get booped or whatever, right? If something happens, it also makes up for the damage you're missing out on. And then finally, this also makes it so that your shots are just going to be a little bit more accurate, as you're able to adjust, basically off of the right click, you're able to adjust where you're hooking. So if we missed our first shot, we can adjust accordingly, or if we hit our first shot, we can adjust accordingly. So we can fire in the first one and then kind of adjust to the side a little bit, right? Just to hit the next shot. So it's going to make your shots a little slightly more accurate, and then also do a big chunk of damage. So the times in which this is not going to be useful is when you have to go for a speedy hook. So you don't have the time to line it up because they're going to get around the corner or something like that. If this guy's going to walk back inside, I can't go for the right click hook because it's just going to take too much time to go for it, right? Or if you don't have ammo to go for it, right? Because you don't have 2 shots or something like that, right? There's a bunch of situations where you won't, but you're going to use it as often as possible. Now, let's see. Really good E usage. I think we did a good job with that. I think one other thing we're going to talk about was crosshair placement. Are you familiar with crosshair placement as a term?
Yeah, pretty much just aim, right?
Yeah, I mean, so crosshair placement is basically placing your crosshair in the best place possible to hit the best and easiest shots, right? The ones that are going to be easiest to hit. So the first basic step to this is aiming at head level, right? So what this means is that if we're walking, obviously headshots do a whole lot more damage than body shots, because it's the difference between that and that. It's one shot versus non-one shot. A lot of times it's going to be meaning the difference between a quarter health and half health, right? So it's almost doing twice as less damage. So headshots do a whole lot more than body shots, right? So we want to hit headshots, and when we're walking around aiming at body level, this means that we're going to be naturally hitting body levels. So when we have to adjust really far, there's going to be a really hard shot to hit, right? Because it's more adjustment. So if we have less adjustment, just having to go slightly to the side, these is easier shots to hit. So if we are to aim at body level, we're just going to naturally hit body shots. So we're aiming down a corridor, aiming into shields, right? We're hitting body shots. But if we're aiming at head level, now we're doing this exact same thing, but we're just naturally hitting headshots, right? So we want to make sure we're aiming at head level, and on top of that, also just aiming at body level and character level as well. As a lot of times I also noticed that we would adjust above people, like up here, when
Mhm.
almost no character in the game are going to be, most characters in
Right.
the game aren't going to be that tall, right? Whereas like we would go for a hook and then we'd adjust up here, right? And we miss the hook upwards. So we want to make sure that when we're aiming, the majority of the time, aside from some characters who are taller and slower, we're going to be aiming at the same basic plane where we're going left to right. And besides characters that are up on high grounds or lower than us, for the most part, most of our aiming is done doing this, and we want to make sure we're setting it on this, and not adjusting up or down, because we would miss shots while going upwards above them, which isn't something a lot of people do very often. So most
Right.
of the times when you're missing, you're going to want to miss left or right, and it's just going to make your shots much easier. So try to keep your shots at head level. Characters that don't hit headshots, it doesn't matter. Aim for the body. You also want to aim where you know people are going to be. So if we don't want to just walk around aiming at our head level. We want to aim at their head level. So he's top left, he's coming top right. We're going to pre-aim at head level so we can, when he comes around the corner, we can just land the hook or the right click, right? We know he's top left, so we're pre-aiming left side, already aiming at head level. So when we turn the corner, right, we already hit the headshot, right? These guys are on a little bit of a slope, so they're looking, they're the same way on a Torb, you're going to look down, and on a tank, we're going to look up. These guys, we're going to look down a little bit, but actually we're too far away there for it to actually do anything. But we're going to look down on these guys, so that when we come around this corner here, we're already aiming at their head, right? Versus, you know, versus looking, upwards at our head level, which would be up here,
Yeah, and having to
right?
correct.
So that's just cross-replacing the basics of it, and also just making sure we're not missing our hooks like upwards, right? Which is something we want to do, and then that is pretty much it. Now we have 9 more minutes here. Trying to think. You can probably go ahead and queue up for a game, and then we might leave this game though at the end. But while you're in queue, let's talk about strengths and weaknesses, and kind of what are the main points of the session so far, and like kind of what needs the most work versus the least work. Usually I go over strengths and weaknesses a little bit early, like I do it twice throughout the session. But since we're going over a lot of basics, I felt like it'd just be better to go over more content. But in any case, let's just talk about abilities real quick. So abilities, hook usage, not hook usage needed work. E did not. We also went over, what are the other characters? We did Reaper and we did Ana. So then on Reaper, I think ability usage honestly was pretty decent as well. And then on Ana, ability usage was pretty decent, though all of them needed work. It just wasn't really a big important thing. So I'd probably say this goes to probably like a low to medium priority across the characters. Maybe slightly higher on some of them. Maybe it could be a medium. Now ultimate usage, I probably would say gonna be around the same. I'd probably say on on Ana, we just want to get the right targets, use it at the right times. But for the most part, we had decent ultimate usage on all of them. Though probably say maybe slightly above our ability usage. So I'd probably say ultimate usage goes to like a medium priority. Just make sure we're getting ults off well. Mechanics probably say goes up a little bit higher, right? Just especially like on Hog and Reaper, lowering sensitivity, keeping good crosshair placement, make sure we're hitting our shots, just generally practicing our aim. Go different hook techs that we talked about, knowing when to left click versus right click, all that stuff. Overall, probably would say goes to medium priority for you to work on. Positioning definitely was a big one, right? Make sure we're using cover properly, make sure we're using high grounds, rotate to high grounds in between fights. On Reaper, try to get behind them. And those are all the main ones. Good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? So
Right.
making sure, I also see you're in game, so I'm spectating you now.
Yeah.
So that would overall probably lead itself to be a medium-high priority. And then awareness is just paying attention to your surroundings, in which case we've had a couple things, such as like just paying attention to your health bar, paying attention to your surroundings, teammates, enemies, all of which I'd probably say goes to like a medium priority. Right, we'll get better at that as we go along, but probably say that's medium. So that's kind of the rough list as of the moment of what you need to work on, and then we'll just continue on here.
So whenever that kind of thing happens, when you end up with a couple people on point, but it's like say like 2, 3 people on point, but you have to hold a choke. Do you think it's like utmost priority to get to the point, or should you just stay like half a choke, half a point?
If you have like 3 people contesting one person, you don't need a fourth. Why don't we talk
Okay.
about just holding real quick? Why don't you like honestly leave this game and we'll go over some things.
Okay.
Just in terms of where you should be holding. So, this is because I hear you talking about chokes and so you obviously you said the term choke and you understand what it means, right? It's basically a choke is a funnel, right? It's anytime the enemy
Right.
team is funneled. Now, how do we properly use a choke point? So when it comes to using a choke point, right? A lot of so basically we're not when it comes to using the choke point, we obviously don't want to stand in front of it. I mean, I haven't seen us doing that. We don't want to stand in front of it because we're standing at the very front of the choke point. That means that we have to walk backwards through it, and they don't even have to walk through it in the first place, right? So it puts us at a disadvantage, puts them at the advantage. Here, media in the middle of the choke point, kind of the same thing, where if we're holding right here, then we're in the middle of it, and we're at that disadvantage. We're in the funnel, and then they don't have to go through it. And at the end, this is now where you want to be holding at the end of the choke point. Now, this really depends upon the map and mode. Some chokes are better than others with a very small choke. So let's see, very small choke would be, I don't know if there's a good example here. We might have to go to a different map to see, but if you're working with a very small choke, you're in fact not even going to want to hold at the end of the choke. You're probably going to want to hold even further back, just because they don't even need to walk through it if it's a small choke. Whereas if it's a big, long one, they will have to walk through it. So let's go to a map here as an example. Eichenwald is a good example of this. So, yeah, and we can also go over no Man's Land. So No Man's Land is similar to choke points. No Man's Land is going to basically be any long stretch of space where there's no cover at all, right? Where there's no
Right.
cover at all, and this means that you can shoot at someone very, very easily while they're in this long stretch of space where there's no cover at all, right? So let's get over there so we can show you what it looks like. So on payload maps, pretty much the entire payload path is a No Man's Land. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna ask about that bridge because I was kind of encountering that with like the Sombra. There was no cover for me, but
Yep, exactly. Yes, the bridge is a no man's land. So we'll talk about how to properly use this. So this right here is a no man's land. No cover anywhere where you're standing here. This is a choke point, very small funnel where they have to go through. Both act very similarly. Here, this is such a small choke point that if we stand right here, they don't need to walk through it because they can shoot at us and pressure us back without needing to even walk past the choke if we're holding here, right? Now, on top
right.
of that, that also puts us at the front of the no man's land. If we're holding up here, we have to walk backwards through the no man's land, and they don't need to even walk through it. So alternatively, where we probably should be holding is more so on this corner, right? Because now this means that they have to walk through the choke and through the no man's land, and that entire time our team gets to shoot at them. If they choose to go to the right, we can rotate and meet them on the right, and then now they're stuck in another choke point, right? So overall here, if we're holding up close there, we're going to be in a whole lot of issues. Now, your team is probably not going to understand this, being also bronze and silver players, right? They're not going
Right.
to understand the usage of chokes, right? That's not, and no man's land, they're not going to understand this. So do your best to apply this if you're leading where your team's at. But if your team is up in the bad positioning, go and join them. So this is a quote from Jane, who you might not be familiar with yet, but he's a popular coach, and he's an Overwatch League coach and a streamer. In any case, what he says is when one person is doing something stupid, that is called feeding. When 6 people are doing something stupid, that's called a strategy, right? So if all 5 of our teammates are up here holding this and we're back here, we're the one person doing the stupid thing because we're not helping our
Right.
team out, right? But so we would want to go up there to help them out. But if we're the one instigating this, I probably wouldn't be try not to do that, right? Instead, try to do your best to have your team holding here first, and if they choose to hold up there, then you would rotate up there there to hold with them. Now, the same concept applies throughout this entire thing, right? This entire pathway is no man's land pretty much. So here we would probably hold on this corner, right? Use this corner as cover, right? And that's the back of that, right? Here you would preferably probably be you know, if in this long stretch of space, you'd be holding back, you know, for a little further back using that, or over here and using this use this cover. On this bridge, this is no man's land as well. So instead of holding at the front of this bridge, where you have to back up through it, and you're in bad positioning, and that they don't have to walk the bad position, you'd hold on this end, where now you're gonna have the cart behind. You know, if they push the cart forwards, you have the cart as cover. You have this and that, and this and that, right? So you have. And then also, you know, we have some high ground control as well. So you have, you know, you have more options to work with when it comes to cover at the end of the no man's land rather than in the middle of it, right? Whereas if you're in the middle of this, there's absolutely nothing anywhere, right? So
Right.
that's proper usage of cover and how to use it. On Paris, we were holding basically right behind the choke, whereas probably the best positioning possible would be on the high ground behind the choke, right? Because now you have a high ground advantage, and they're forced to walk through the choke, whereas if we're holding at it, they don't, to shoot at us, they don't have to walk through the choke, right? So
Right.
out of basically this is the end of the session. We went through basically the main points when we were talking through positioning number 1. Number 2, it would be kind of tied between awareness and your what was the other one? And mechanics, right? Number 3 is going to be your ability usage and ultimate usage, right? Do you have any questions about anything we've talked about, or just any other parts of the game before we end up?
I don't think so. Thanks for your help.
Yeah, no problem, man. So let me stop the recording there.